we talked about, and we've got a great guest. Troy Renck's coming up from Dove Valley, and how we want everybody to know that you can get in touch with us by phone, 303-954-1290, or you can email us at woodypage.com. You can email us at the Denver Post. You can go to Twitter and that's the easiest way, and we're going to get to
at
that
the
in a little bit.
sports show.
Yeah. But let's go to
Troy.
Troy.
Dove Valley. He's ready to go, right, guys? Troy Renck. Troy, there you are. Your good-looking mug on DenverPost.com right now. So how badly did the Broncos need this last week and a half?
Well, the guys you mentioned, Peyton Manning needed it time to get treatment on his thigh and feel better, but more importantly, they get Brandon Marshall will be back. Safety TJ Ward will be back. This is a different defense than the Colts saw in the season opener. The defenders had to learn the scheme, and Jack Del Rio kind of had to learn how to use these new toys he had to play with. So Broncos will be a different team as well, but they needed to buy less. For those three specifically, David Bruton did practice today. He was out at practice along with Orlando Franklin. Both are still in the concussion protocol, but making steady progress toward being able to play. Franklin, I assume, will play, but both making steady progress toward playing.
Do you think, Troy, that the concussion protocol, and you wrote about concussions last week and how different players respond to it, do you think the concussion protocol was in place with Pittsburgh in the fourth quarter on Sunday when Roethlisberger went out?
Yeah, I was there. I don't. It was bizarre. He gets whiplashed. He's hurt. There was another injury involved, so you don't know somehow if the training staff, their attention got diverted. But there's no excuse for him going back into that game if you're following concussion protocol. Because I mean, having done that story last week, as you graciously mentioned, I mean, there's clear steps to take, and there's no way that he would have cleared them in 2 plays. I mean, it's just impossible the way the protocol is set up. And when I did the story, it was about players learning that they have to, there's situations in place, there are rules in place to protect them from themselves. They're so competitive. You know, there's always this thing that the team wants them out there, and that was the case for years, but some of these players need protection from themselves, and they feel like with that third party, the independent neurologist, that it does kind of take it out of their hands. And so they're making progress, but what happened in Pittsburgh was that was not following protocol, and frankly, it was unsafe. And it should be looked at because there's guidelines in place. There's no way.
Hey, Troy, back to the Broncos and Colts. You think the Broncos are happy the Colts are coming into town? Can you tell?
Well, I think they would have preferred the Bengals for a little revenge. And the Bengals, that's a team they kind of wanted to punch in the throat after what happened on Monday night. But the Colts, you're happy because they're one-dimensional. I mean, these are things they're not going to say publicly. But they're always dangerous because of Andrew Luck. For all the comparisons of Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning, both first overall picks, bright guys, brainiacs, Luck, for me, he reminds me, unless, and Woody, can you both speak to this, Luck reminds me a lot more of John Elway than Peyton Manning because he's able to improvise and make plays with guys draped all over him, and he can color outside the lines, if you will. And that makes him dangerous in the playoffs, just like Ben Roethlisberger is dangerous in the playoffs. The guys, when play breaks down, are able to make plays. But they look forward to playing the Colts because they feel like their defense is a lot better, and Denver has a running attack now that they really didn't have first week of the season.
Troy, I thought you brought up an interesting point there about the comparisons. Not only did Andrew Luck, does he play somewhat like John Elway? He's willing to take off and pick up a first down, but he played, of course, at Stanford, and John Elway would have wanted Andrew Luck here over everything.
He was drooling all over himself before that draft.
If they hadn't gone to the playoffs this year. But it's interesting, again, that what you say, that it seems to me like the Broncos, who have the number 2 rush defense against the run in the league to Detroit, really don't have to spend as much time concerned about the rush as they do what you talked about, that Luck's going to throw the football. So it would give, it seems, Del Rio more freedom to blitz people, but you've also got to keep a spy ready to take care of Andrew Luck on the run.
Yeah, you got to be aware of where he's at. It helps that they played Russell Wilson, Colin Kaepernick, and Luck in the regular season, so this game planning is nothing new. You know, Luck's a little different because he's just so physical and strong. He's not as fast as Kaepernick, but he can break tackles, and you have to be aware of that. They have Boom Herron running the ball for him now with Trent Richardson basically a lost cause. the guy they traded for last year, the former first-round pick. He's just a fullback trying to play running back. He's too big. But off that point, Herron fumbles the ball. He's a nice player. He's a good check down guy in the receiving game, but he's got a propensity for fumbling. And Marshall, getting him back, guys, it's critical because it gives a guy to match up with Cody Fleener, a guy they use a lot. Indianapolis has used their tight ends for the better part of 16 years, ever since Peyton Manning was there. So, again, it's a good matchup for the Broncos in that way, and they should be able to stop the run. The Colts don't run particularly well. They're not a great road team. Their defense is streaky, but Luck makes them dangerous because he makes a couple of big plays and all of a sudden it's a game.
Again, Les keeps bringing up that he thinks the game is more meaningful
A little bit.
Peyton because he's playing the team that let him go. Do you believe that's true? Do you agree with Les? I don't think so.
And the guy they dumped him for.
Right. Or do you think that Peyton will play his usual game, or maybe he will be amped up by the presence of the Colts and the guy who replaced him?
Well, you raised a great point, Woody. If Peyton Manning got up for every game because he is the storyline for the opposing team, he'd be exhausted, by midseason. He is the storyline. I do think when his career's over, because he lives in the moment of the week of preparation, he doesn't get caught up in the hype. But when his career's over, the idea that he could knock the Colts out and kind of stick Irsay in the ribs with a little bit, I'm sure there's a little bit of glee having been around Manning enough to know that he is so ultra competitive that, when he walks away from it, to look back at one point in his career, he knocked him out of the playoffs, would mean a little more. He may never say that, but, Irsay's taken a few shots at him since he left. So the idea that, Manning could knock the Colts out, I think he would enjoy. He just won't say it publicly now. It probably wouldn't even be until he retires.
I would just say this, Troy, also, that people talk about Peyton Manning in the postseason. Do you realize if he beats the Colts, he will be 12-12? He will be a 500 quarterback.
Finally.
Yeah. So I think there's another aspect, and Troy as well as I do. He really does know more about his statistics than he does let on. And I know Les wants to ask you one more question if we can.
Actually, I thought you were going to ask the question, but that's okay. Troy, this game on Sunday, is there any danger at all that the Broncos are already thinking about possibly going into New England?
Yeah, I don't see it, Les, for a couple of reasons. One, they've lost the game in similar circumstances with Baltimore a couple years ago. So to even look a smidge past this game would be foolish. And there's no guarantee that the Patriots win. Now, I do believe they will win, but just being around the Ravens last weekend, they're the last underdog you want to see if you're the Patriots, because they play well in New England and they have a quarterback who's the new Eli Manning. In the biggest games, he plays his best. He's rather pedestrian during the season. He's a streaky player during the regular season. And all you have to do is put him on the road in the playoffs, and suddenly he's a Hall of Famer. So, but for the Broncos, they can't look ahead. They really can't. They need to have the kind of win at home that like the Ravens just had where I was at, where it pushes you into the next game. Not where you survivor's scare, or you feel like you've got a lucky break. They need to have the kind of win that reminds them of what their entire offseason was about. Winning a Super Bowl and going to New England with a different feel, a different confidence. If they just barely skate by, that's not a good position to go into New England. They need to go in healthy and with the kind of effort that makes them think we're a different team than we were in November. And if they can do that, maybe they have a puncher's chance in New England, but no reason to look ahead. That would be silly, given their history a couple
Troy,
years
you
ago.
brought up an excellent point in regard to Baltimore. Be careful what you wish for, Broncos fans, about having the home field advantage in the AFC Championship, because if Baltimore, who has played since 2009 3 times in the playoffs against the Patriots, all in New England, and they've averaged 27 points, and I told Les earlier, 17 points for New England, and they've beaten them 2 out of 3 times and played them tough in the 3rd time, that Baltimore can and has the confidence, and you around them, I think Baltimore has the confidence, unlike the psyche of the Broncos or other teams who go into New England and go, have no chance. Baltimore knows they can win there.
Well, they're like Dallas this year. Dallas is 8-0 on the road. Some teams are just, you get away from home, you get away from distractions, and there becomes a closeness of the group where it's that us against the world, us against the media, us against the other team, and Baltimore feeds off it, and they have a quarterback, Joe Cool, as they call him, and Harbaugh said that he was the best quarterback in the league, obviously hyperbole, but he said it after the game, is Joe Flacco has this attitude where he's unflappable in these big moments, and that's huge in New England, where if you make a mistake, it doesn't steamroll on you, and so they're a dangerous team. Obviously, the executives probably prefer, who wouldn't, another round 17 Manning Brady, but there's no guarantee, and the Broncos have a dangerous game this week in the Colts, but it's a game that's very winnable because the Colts are one-dimensional, and it's a game they need to show they can run the ball and play outstanding defense, so they don't have to go into New England wondering if Peyton Manning can throw for 420 yards and win it for him. That's just not realistic.
Troy, the last time we talked to you out there, you're almost run over by the lawnmower, and now they're lining the field, and I don't want you to be included in being lined where there's a white line up the middle of your body. So
a chalk outline.
We're going to let you get to lunch, and we appreciate it. It's always just really excellent stuff when you join us.
Thanks, Troy.
All right, Happy New Year,
Thanks,
guys.
you
Take
too.
care. Always
That's
a pleasure.
Troy Renck of the Denver Post.